Okay, hello everyone. The video I had planned for today is like only an eighth of the way done, that being the Jeffrey Epstein video. So instead, we're going to be going over some massive drama. All right, I'm going to pretend to be a commentary YouTuber here, pretend I'm like Moist Critical and Pyrocynical, a little combination of the two. So we're going to be going over the T leak drama, the app T, which was, in my opinion, basically a thing for ugly 4 out of 10 girls to go on there and accuse people of a certain word that I can't say, but I'll allude with a certain image.
Rape.
And also just accuse them of a bunch of horrendous things, and this would stick to people. This was also anonymous, by the way. So any guy who was trying to get a job or something, and they were checking your digital footprint, they would actually see this, that someone was accusing you of these certain actions, or that you were rude, or you selfish individual. And this was actually preventing a lot of people from getting jobs. This was a real issue, especially for a lot of, fellow incels as myself, my fellow incels. I'm so hip and cool, right? I definitely have 4chan and 8chan. The T app exposed 72,000 images of these girls, these solid 4 out of 10 to 2 out of 10 baddies that basically look like a, prehistoric goblin dwelling in a cave. Most of these people don't look real. They look like something out of Lord of the Rings. They look like they'd be charging up the orcs thing, meets back on the menu boys, and then they tweet about it on their T app. So I'm glad that these things got leaked. All right, that's my opinion on it. But 72,000 images of girls, all right, that I didn't need to see because they're all ugly. 13,000 of them, are verified selfies of someone's driver's license. So 13,000 driver license photos of these girls got leaked. This anonymous app, which is pretty funny, karma's a 59,000 of these images are from posts, comments, and daily messages that these women, they would tweet about. These are probably like all the people that Elon Musk fired off of Twitter a couple of years back when he made it X. This is probably these people. I feel like they started off, they made this T app. This just seems like something in their ballpark to do. Anything to hate the bigotry of men. Like, it's such a stupid thing in our society. All right, if we don't unite, we're doomed. But I would never date these girls. You would have to like actually hold me at gunpoint, bro, and you'd probably still have to pull the trigger, because some of these people are, calling them people as well is a nice thing for me to say, because they're pretty ugly. Their IP got doxxed and whatnot. All of these girls, this anonymous app, like I already stated, it DOSed all of them. So, people now know where these certain girls were that were ruining a couple dudes' lives. But don't worry, all the closeted incels on 4chan or 8chan are not going to show up to your house, ladies, and gun you down. They're too antisocial to do that. Unless there's a local Walmart nearby, then yeah, okay, they might, shoot you there. But a little background history about the T app. This app has existed since 2023 and didn't really get a lot of popularity till this year. And on July 25th, basically 4chan users, like I'm talking about, these closeted incels, my fellow brothers, they found a database, related to this app that included photos of user IDs and, other information that I covered, their license ID, their location, their, the whole DDoS situation of, I'm canceling you on Twitter. Here's where this guy lives. Here's where this gal lives. But it was just a bunch of, DDoS locations of these ugly cave trolls. And basically, what you can take from this map is stay away from these areas in the US. You will get abducted by these women. I'm surprised all of them aren't pointing towards, more of the East Coast, where all these giant caves in the US are at. I'm surprised the sociable cave trolls are actually living in, everywhere in the US. Kind of crazy with social media and whatnot, but they have the dignity to step outside. I'm surprised they don't turn to stone when the sunlight hits them, but I don't know how you can defend as well of how this app was protecting women. Sure, you can accuse that, your typical blank assaulter, this guy did this to me, this guy was, pretty grippy. Okay, not in that context, but, he was gropey, then I'd understand the point for this app, but I don't know. Because, it's a digital footprint that you're putting on these people, and I'm just going to assume that, 70% or more of the allegations on this app are false that these cave trolls were putting. Because I've had a lot of friends as well that get accused of the R word, and it never comes out true, and it literally ruins their career. And this is why, male game ending rates are so high because of apps like this. And I'm glad that this app's information got leaked, because this is just another threat to society, you know. And us men, we already have to deal with, you know, male pattern baldness and the twink pipeline once you hit your 30s. You know, those are big issues. We don't need this as well to, you know, pile onto it. So what was included on this app, you're probably wondering? Well, it was a bunch of dudes' names, identities, and other information. You know, and it was basically a small violation of someone else's online privacy and whatnot, or their, you know, just their privacy in general. Because these girls could go on there, they can input, they get a photo of the dude, and they could say, you know, he did this or he did that, and there would be no validation to this. And, you know, your digital footprint, when you go to get a job or anywhere, they would look up your name and this would come up. So if some girl accused you of, you know, being a feet fondler, and you're working at McDonald's, who is, you know, established that they're anti-feet again and again, or I think it was Burger King with the feet lettuce, but, and they would see this and they would put you back, and they would basically, you know, put a hole in your head. You know, there's a true story, by the way, you can look it up. You know, and a lot of the complaints that were coming out of these apps were a lot of dudes as well. They were like, you know, my face is on this app, it's saying I did something which I didn't do. And the owners of this app, they wouldn't do anything about it. So I'm glad that 4chan stepped in and they did something about this. All right, because this app, it wasn't good. All right, ladies, you know, you can have something nice, but when you turn it into a cesspit, when you turn it into a, you know, feminism and whatnot, I'm glad it went under. I'm glad most of you, not all of you, got exposed for this. You deserved it. You genuinely did. And I hate to be, you know, so harsh, but luckily 98% of my audience is Sausage Fest. So the 2% of you who lied about being female, or to my trans viewers, you know, we don't have to worry about this. All right, we are Venom. We are united. And, you know, several states in the US have also added, you know, electronic communication to their existing harassment and stalking laws. And some of which this app was breaching, like in the state of New Jersey and whatnot. This T app was breaching some of those, because it is basically a digital stalking attached to your footprint. You know, like I've said countless times, you know, people could look up your name. They could see, you know, what girls on this T app were saying about you. And, you know, most people are going to believe it because, you know, people love drama. They will not fact check anything. They will just assume the worst of someone with very little evidence, and they'll just believe it because, you know, people see people being miserable and they have miserable lives, and they're like, oh, this guy's more miserable than me. I believe it. Whatnot makes me feel better about my miserable self and whatnot. That is this cave troll cycle that this T app was festering. And 4chan, righteous 4chan, oh, my brothers, my fellow incels, you know, they stepped in and they slayed this beast. All right, they basically did what the Doomslayer would do in hell. They tore apart all these cave trolls digitally, not physically, and they DDoSed them. They brought a light, you know, they shined a mirror back on this evil Medusa, and it turned it to stone. And all these cave trolls are running back into the shadows, and they're bitching and moaning. They're like, oh my god, my anonymous app, you know, that took a photo of me and got my cellular location and whatnot, exposed me. You know, how could I have seen this? You know, so it's a two-way street. Thank you for watching. That's my first or second time doing drama. I haven't done drama in ages. I think I did one, like, I don't know, 3 years ago, but it was on video games. You know, I'm a nerd. I love video games, but this is a real life, kind of in a digital scene. So I didn't know much about this. So if some of this information is wrong, hopefully it's not, though. I tried to fact check as much as I can with the news and whatnot. But if it is wrong, my bad. I tried to make it comedic. I don't know if I did. I don't know if people have the same humor as me. But that being said, thank you for watching. That's going to do it for this video.